All right, friends, on this beautiful day, let's take a tour of the old field. This is the bulk of our land, and when we got here, it was all mowed grass that had been left to grow up. So it was mostly just tall European grasses. So keep that in mind as you see what you're seeing. I will show you that up here, those are ash trees. They were here. They've grown a lot. This sycamore was not. Oh my gosh, we have grown that sycamore from seed. And that tree that I had to step around, sandbar willow, that we're gonna have to trim because they're tilting so far over and Steve can't get across on the mower, that was planted by us as a little bitty tiny plant. So willows grow fantastic, so do sycamore, and so do so many of these plants if they're just allowed to. We're entering a very, very lush zone. We crossed over that seasonal creek, and so we're a little bit lower over here, and it's kind of shady, and the plants are just lush. We've planted a lot of American plum and cut plants just like we have everywhere. But this climbing rose that we'll see a lot of came on its own. All of the shrubs, which I've done many videos on, but the silky and rough leaf dogwoods, they were in the seed bank. And out here, I think there were maybe 2 good-sized cedars, but obviously a lot of them were really tiny out here, and now they're not. So past that cut-off cedar, which is right in the middle like a post, there are some really tall plants, and those were the 3 sisters out here, the cottonwoods and 2 big-tooth aspen. And they were sort of the anchor of everything out here, and now you can see how all the plants have filled in, and look at how beautiful they are. These goldenrods are tall goldenrod, late goldenrod, and Canada goldenrod. They often come in on their own. The seeds are easily carried by the wind. They're a gorgeous plant. They feed so many insects. They are resilient. Yes, if you are trying to do a prairie restoration, you might struggle with them dominating because in those areas where you're restoring prairie, you have major changes in the soil than what the original balanced prairie had. And that's a hard thing to overcome without a lot of labor. So I'm not talking about that here. This is Old Field, and this is magnificent and beloved by so many birds and insects. Here we had some crazy cut plants we had to tie back early on just so we could get through. I don't know what we are doing, y'all. I mean, we have trees planted everywhere. Anybody know that one? Yep. Gymnocladus dioicus. You got it. Dioicus. Kentucky coffee tree. Let's keep on. I hope that you can hear the insects as we walk through here. Steve and I did our 5-mile road walk this morning, and the areas that were old field veg like this, or sides of the road that hadn't been mowed, were just so loud with insects. Oh man, music to our ears and theirs. There's an American plum. This right here is a Yates persimmon. She fruited this spring, but dropped those fruits, just a couple, and they often do that early on. So we have our fingers and toes crossed that maybe we will get some fruits from this land next year. Somebody has a hive around here, or there's a wild group of honeybees, because we don't keep honeybees, but there's a lot here right now. Okay, let's get through. So we're thinning cedars in a few areas just so we can maintain diversity of habitat here. We'll do our main restoration work in the fall, or I should say winter. Big difference. That allows for a lot of the foods to be consumed and us to do minimal damage. It's also a really nice activity to deal with winter blues. Gets you outside, gets your heart pumping. So we'll be doing thinning and invasive management. These are our new three sisters, shingle oak and some black oak. Another persimmon that looks a little less happy, but you never know when somebody's gonna click in and get happy. The cedars are very loved for nesting in, but so far I've not seen one that's been successfully nested in, so we'll see. Just keep observing. Now you can see right here, we're right next to the road. So one of the strategies Steve had, because we have 3.5 acres and we want to have as much time walking around amongst the restoration as possible, is to be very sinuous in the trail creation. So you don't really see where you're going. And you can tell we're still right by the road, so you can hear it for sure. But sometimes there's not people on it and it's quiet and you feel like you're in another world. Look at what's all around me here. Can you even believe this was grown up European grasses? So we bought this place in autumn of 2010 and we never mowed out here after that. So it looked like it had probably grown up from at least spring of 2010, maybe even 2009, since there were those baby cedars in there. And all these dogwoods, they've been some of the most exciting plants to pop up here. Well, all of them are the goldenrods, the dogwoods, the cedars, the asters. I think I came out at maybe go home from school time. That usually gets quite busy here. Now right here you'll see we've got a bit of an opening, and we're going to maintain these openings. So the dogwoods that are coming up in the middle, we will cut. We won't treat them, we'll just cut them, and then they can be organic matter and go back into the soil. That's one thing to remember on a lot of these lands that all of us are buying and restoring, is the soils have been very challenged by land use. And in many areas, it's not uncommon for a foot or 2 feet of topsoil to have been lost. That's now in the Gulf of Mexico or various other rivers on the way, which is kind of crazy to even think about. But that means we need to tend the soil. We need to be patient with them and allow organic matter to continue to build up and decay. And probably within our lifetime, with natural cycles, we might not see a big change. Soil builds up over very long periods of time. And we'll do a soil video. Steve is the soil man. And talk about that more. It won't be, like I said, in our lifetimes where we see huge changes unless you're bringing in just enormous quantities of organic matter. But for us, we are just using the plants that are here, and then as they die, as they drop leaves, they return to the soil. We're patient. Now here, you can see, this is one of our cedar trees that we took out just to open up some light for some of these other shrubs we're growing in this area. We created a brush pile right next to it. Brush piles are loved by wildlife. And then our cedar logs standing are an experiment. Maybe woodpeckers will eventually get there if insects move in there, and carpenter bees love to nest in cedar posts. So we're really hoping to attract some carpenter bees. They're fascinating. Look at this, the way the trail goes. I'm sure you can see it. I can just see a little bit in front of me, and then it keeps going. The cut plants have been mostly raided as they have ripened. And I don't know why I said raided. They've been eaten. You never really know what's going to come out of my mouth. So maybe these just aren't eaten yet, or there's some other more scrumptious ones right now. And the goldfinches are definitely the main ones eating on those. The silky dogwood berries disappeared a couple months ago, and the fruit-eating birds really love those, the catbirds and the waxwings. You can see up here that rough-leaf dogwood berries are just starting to get eaten because they're just now ripening. So rough-leaf dogwood has kind of an odor about it, and from what I've read, it looks a lot like gray dogwood, and folks often get them mixed up. But apparently, the stinky one is how you tell, okay, that is rough-leaf dogwood, or Cornus drummondii. Now this is a persimmon we grew. Oh my gosh! Can you guys see those? Those are one of the katydid eggs. Ah! How cool! I'll put in the description the ID as close as I can get. These plants are magic, I'm telling you. Now we're close to the road again here. We're going to veer away just in a moment, and we put staghorn sumac out here, which is this amazing visual screen. And the deer like to cross through here and then rub their antlers on these sumac. You can see some healed areas here. And it's fine. I mean, they don't hurt the sumac at all. This persimmon, gorgeous-rama. We will recage them, a couple of these at some point, because the deer like to eat their leaves too. I know I'm out here in the bright of sun right now, and that makes some of the video quality a little challenging for you all, but I'm getting eaten alive right now with the mosquitoes, and if I come at dark, I probably wouldn't even do it because they'd be making me upset. More insect song. New England aster. There's also heath aster out here, an old field aster. Like I said, the 3 goldenrods. Ooh, look at that. Spittlebug action. I like spittlebugs. Oops, let's get that focus. There we go. There's still a lot of catbirds out here. I'm sure they're eating on the rough-leaf dogwood as well. Now, one of the things that we did that we wouldn't recommend doing is planting really tall floppy plants right next to the trail. So we did that early on. We put cut plants all next to the edge of the trail, which was really neat because they're beautiful. We get to see them, and it made for pretty easy planting. But then at some point, at their heaviest, they tip over and block your way through. So we just tie them together. But if you want less management, plant them a little bit further back in. These are all things, just trial and error. It's really normal with restoration, I think. And then you can just adjust as you go. There's not big mistakes. It's just lessons. This is the corner we're going to be spending a lot of time on this winter. There's still some big patches of honeysuckle, so we will take out the honeysuckle. And there's 2 really big persimmons in here that we planted. We're hoping that maybe they'll be female. Sorry, I hope I'm not jostling this camera too much with my swatting. This patch of blackberries has been wondrous this year. We ate so much out of here. Steve and I toured together a lot, and I would say it probably takes us an hour. We also go on our own. We bring binoculars sometimes. We bring our phones to take pictures. Sometimes we bring nothing. We will walk barefoot sometimes. Sometimes we don't, because we prune blackberry and then we drop it in the trail because, you know, we're really smart about that stuff. And then we step on them and we go, oh, maybe we'll wear shoes again for a while. We're creating these tunnels of the roughleaf and silky dogwood, and red bats have been seen hanging over these trails. They are so exciting when we find them. They're not common, at least to our finding them during migration time, so I'm keeping my eye out right now. You can see that some of this trail is getting a little pinched, so we will do some really good pruning this fall. Take out things at the base or at the right joint and then drop them back in, like I said, to return to the earth. If you do just kind of a quick clip on the end, you're just promoting a lot more growth right there, I've learned. So it's not worth it, because then you're going to have double the labor later. Here we have some bald cypress. We may have planted too many in here. You never know if all your trees are going to live or not. This is lake sedge. It's a very seepy area through here. It starts up where we were and then comes through here. And we're going to go back over, and you're not going to be able to see anything, but it goes through this area of this fence row into that kind of opening you can see, which is the old agriculture field that isn't ours. And then there's another woods that goes into there, into a vernal pool. So remember, this is something that I like to think about all the time, that just because we own this one little patch, that doesn't mean this patch is isolated. It's very connected to all the land around, because the land as a whole is what is making up the ecosystem where you live. And so everybody's actions do impact one another. And I would love to be able to get that vernal pool, but we probably won't, and that's okay. You do what you can do, and then you also trust that Mother Earth will continue on, and some things will be lost and some things will thrive. Our friends were talking about this the other day with us, and we just all remembered the Ice Age. A lot of life died in the Ice Age, but a lot survived. And look at, the planet is still here, alive and thriving, and perhaps even more glorious than ever. At least in some ways. This one's much shadier. When we get shadier, you'll see the pathway turns to moss. So sometimes the pathway gets really pummeled in the non-growing season, because Steve and I walk out here so much, and then it turns back to bare soil. But the moss seems to be able to hold up better to our feet than the grass. The grass really doesn't like so much compaction, especially in the shade, I guess would be the main thing. Steve mows out here. We just have an old riding mower, and I think he does 2 passes, and then we do trimming a couple of times during the growing season out here so that we can still walk fairly comfortably. And then we do the bulk of it, like I said, in the winter. But if someone's coming over and it's been raining and we haven't done a lot of pruning and it's just that time of really thick growth, we will need to do some trimming, because most people don't want to push through a bunch of plants, which I understand. Now right here is where we're really close to that agricultural field out there. That is not ours. And this is a really tough growing zone in here because it's hot and it's dry. The sugar maples are hanging on very well. We're working on reestablishing some spice bush, but you can see the understory is largely poison ivy right now, and we're not trying to change that. They're just adding organic matter back into the soil, and to try to establish some more woodland type plants in this environment at this time is just not worth the effort. We're going to let the leaves continue to build up, keep throwing sticks in here, and at some point the soil moisture will hold up better, and then some of those woodland plants will thrive a lot easier. You've always just got to pick, what is it that you're going to do? Where can you have the most impact right now? And so for woodland plants, we've picked some better spots than that one. This is a really neat area of plum, American plum, and blackberry, and climbing rose. So I can't see it yet, but I'm sure there are birds' nests in here. There almost always are, because that network of stems provides a stable area for birds to build. Well, look at you, some kind of crane fly. I just love these hips. They're bigger than, say, multiflora, the invasive multiflora, so they don't get consumed as readily by birds, more so by mammals. But the climbing nature, I think, is where the functionality really comes in for the rose, because it provides all those nesting spots. And I think in many landscapes, the nesting spots is a challenge, because they all have, the birds have the certain arrangements that they like so that it can be a safe nest. I think that's why we get all that building in the junipers, the cedars, and then the challenges with predators getting them. The birds just want to be here because there's so much food, but then there's not quite enough nesting opportunities. So that goes into our woodland trail, which we will tour at another time. We're going to just finish out our old field. So can you believe it? We're still on the main trail here. And so our whole property is 3.5 acres. This is an early planted persimmon. Male. So that's good. We know that we've got a male for pollination. And out here might be, I don't know, an acre and a half. Maybe 2, but we've got a half-mile trail out here thanks to the sinuosity and curving around and making use of all area possible, and really thinking of the land as we have in all spots in terms of pods and paths, keeping the land as connected as possible, and then also having paths for us to access, but not having too many paths. We had so many at the beginning to give us access to places, and that was very useful. And then as we wanted to connect land and we were done adding plants in that area or just cleaning up the heaps of trash, we would shut those paths down. We wanted our paths to make sense, and we really like being able to make a loop and not have a bunch of just dead-end trails. Now you'll recognize where we are, so we're going to go back the other way and we'll stop at the bridge. This is the low lush area. Right now there are so many neat spiders and spider webs everywhere. It's thrilling. You all may catch some things that I didn't get to see because it's really hard to see the screen of my camera out here in the sun, so I'm just trying to walk and my screen's just kind of a blob of green. Now I can see though because I'm in the shade. So What's my word of advice? Just go for it. Let things grow. Start adding in biodiversity, but don't think you have to plant everything. A lot of the land that was here went through several years of European grasses before these native goldenrods and asters and trees and shrubs started to come up. If you're somewhere where you can let the land start to grow, we so recommend that. What a beauty. Bumble. Soon they will be, the females, the queens will be looking for places to overwinter in old rodent nests or various other holes in the ground where they can be safe from winter. And it's so exciting that they have the resources they need to survive here. Look how beautiful this is. I just can't even believe it. I can't even believe the change. Feel free to leave me any questions or comments in the comments area below. I hope you enjoyed this tour, and we'll talk to you soon.